Welcome back to the deep dive. Or, well, I guess today we are calling this specific session a technical briefing for the transformation roadmap.
A technical briefing is definitely the right term for this one.
Yeah, because usually when we crack open a book or a stack of research papers, we like to wade in, we dip a toe, we splash around, maybe we find a couple of fun anecdotes to share at a dinner party.
We stay in the shallows where it's safe and warm.
Right, we stay in the shallows, but today is not that day.
No, today is absolutely not that day.
Today, we are putting on the commercial-grade, heavy-duty, deep-sea gear. We are attaching the lead weights. We're going all the way down to the bottom of the trench. Because the document we are looking at, honestly, calling it a book feels like a disservice. It feels flimsy.
Because it's not just a book. It is a field manual. It is a schematic.
Exactly, a schematic. We are dissecting Manifestation 4, Unlocking the Power of Mantra, Yantra, and Rudraksha by Kanav Sachdev. And I need to stop everyone right now. I can hear the collective eye roll through the headphones. I know exactly what you're thinking.
Oh, I'm sure they're thinking of vision boards.
Right. You see the word manifestation and you think magic wishes, fairy dust. You think of vision boards with pictures of Ferraris glued to them. You think it's about, thinking happy thoughts until $1 million literally falls out of the sky into your lap.
And if that is what you're looking for, you are in the wrong place. Please turn this off. Because that is precisely what we are not doing today.
Not at all.
The reason we selected Dev's work out of the absolute ocean of fluff that exists in this genre is that he effectively strips the woo-woo paint off the wall. He takes the sandblaster to it. He doesn't care about the decoration. He's looking at the load-bearing beams underneath.
The structural integrity of reality.
Precisely. He approaches this topic not as a mystic, but as a behavioral architect.
And that's the phrase that hooked me. Psychological engineering. That is the entire vibe of this deep dive. We are looking at the mechanics of reality. If your life is a simulation, this book is the command line console where you actually type in the code.
We're talking about mechanical consciousness, vibrational physics, and neurological reprogramming.
So it's dense.
It is incredibly dense. And I want to be very clear with our listeners right up front. We have spent days combing through this text. We've been arguing about the physics, checking the references to the ancient Vedic texts, looking at the neuroscience.
Yeah, we've basically been living in this manual.
We have. And we are going to extract the architectural framework for you today. We're going to give you the overview of this system, but, and I rarely say this so starkly, we are looking at a blueprint that is hundreds of pages deep.
Right. If you want to actually build the house, you need the manual.
Exactly. What we're doing today is just the briefing. Owning the text, specifically Manifestation 4, is essentially a prerequisite if you plan on actually executing these protocols.
Consider us the consultants walking you through the blueprints. We can show you where the walls go, where the wiring runs, but you are the one who has to pour the concrete.
You have to do the work.
So let's unpack the core thesis here. Sachdev starts with a really bold premise. He bridges ancient Vedic text stuff that is thousands of years old with modern quantum physics. And he does it through this concept of Spanda.
Spanda. It's a Sanskrit term, but let's translate it into physics immediately so we don't lose the skeptics.
Please do.
It effectively means the primordial vibration. The text references the Spanda Karikas, which is this ancient Kashmir Shaivism text, and it describes the universe not as static stuff, not as hard matter, but as a subtle pulsation.
A throb of consciousness.
Yes, a throb. And this is where it gets really interesting because he immediately pivots to the atom. We all learned in high school that atoms are the building block of matter. We have this model of the little solar system, right? Protons in the middle, electrons spinning around like little planet.
But Sachdev points out that model is a lie, or at least a massive oversimplification, because they're mostly empty.
They are 99.99999% empty space.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that number.
It is. To visualize this, and Sachdev uses a great analogy here that really sticks. If you take an atom and blow it up to the size of a football stadium, the nucleus, the actual stuff, is a marble sitting on the 50-yard line.
A single marble.
A single marble, and the electrons are like tiny gnats buzzing around the highest seats in the bleachers. The rest of it, the entire field, it's just potential. It is empty space. It's energy moving so fast it creates the illusion of solidity.
That blows my mind every time I hear it, because the chair I'm sitting on right now feels solid. My coffee cup feels solid. But Sachdev argues that the chair isn't solid, It's a dance.
It's a dance of quarks and electrons vibrating at a specific frequency that your brain interprets as chair. If you stop the vibration, the chair would literally disappear.
He compares it to a fan blade. Right.
Exactly like a fan blade. When the fan is off, you can stick your hand right through the blades. When it's on high speed, it looks like a solid disc. You can't put your hand through it without getting hurt. Matter is just energy moving at high speed.
So, strictly speaking, we aren't living in a material world. We are living in a vibrational world.
Entirely. And this connects directly to string theory and modern physics. The idea that the fundamental constituents of the universe aren't particles, but tiny vibrating strings. The note the string plays determines what kind of particle it is.
So the vibration dictates the physical form.
Yes. If it vibrates one way, it's a photon. If it vibrates another way, it's an electron. This is identical structurally to the Vedic concept of Nada Brahma, the universe, as sound. The universe isn't made of atoms, it's made of music.
Okay, so if everything is vibration, why does it look like a solid reality? I mean, why do I see a specific world and not just a blur of energy? This is where the observer effect comes in, right?
Right. In quantum mechanics, specifically the famous double slit experiment, we know that observation collapses probability waves into matter. The electron doesn't actually decide where to be until you look at it.
It's just a wave of potential until it's observed.
Exactly. But Sachdev takes this out of the physics lab and puts it right into your skull. He talks about the biological mechanism for this, which is the Reticular Activating System, the RAS.
The bouncer of the brain. I love this concept because it makes manifestations sound less like magic and much more like biology.
Because it is biology. The RAS is a bundle of nerves at your brainstem. Think of it as the ultimate spam filter. Your brain is receiving millions of bits of data every single second. Temperature, light, sound, the feeling of your clothes touching your skin, the hum of the fridge.
If you processed all of that consciously, you'd just overload.
You'd have a seizure, you couldn't function. The RAS is the filter. It decides what gets through to your conscious mind based on what you deem important.
This is the red Tesla effect.
Precisely. If you decide you want to buy a red Tesla, suddenly you see red Teslas everywhere. On the highway, in parking lots, on TV commercials. Did the factory suddenly produce more red Teslas overnight?
No, they were always there.
They were always there. Your RAS just start filtering them out because you tagged them as important. Sachdev's point is that we are bioelectric broadcasters. We are tuning this filter, and by tuning it, we are literally collapsing a different version of reality into our conscious experience.
So when people say things like, oh, I always attract bad relationships or I can never make money, they are essentially programming their RAS to look for evidence of that specific reality.
Yes. They are setting their biological spam filter to block success and allow dysfunction. The RAS is obedient, it has no moral compass, it will show you exactly what you tell it is true.
And he even touches on epigenetics, which I found fascinating. The idea that this isn't just in your head, it's actually in your cells.
It is the bridge between the thought and the body. Thoughts are electrical impulses. Emotions are chemical signatures. Sachdev cites research showing that these frequencies, stress versus gratitude, for example, can actually activate or deactivate gene expression.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You're rewriting your biological software.
You are rewriting it with your vibrational state. If you are constantly in a state of lack or fear, you are down-regulating your immune system and up-regulating inflammation markers. You are literally manifesting illness on a cellular level.
So the key takeaway from the physics segment here is, we aren't wishing for things. We are tuning a bioelectric broadcast. And if the signal is static, the reality is static.
That is the core premise. You cannot build a stable house on a shaky foundation. If your internal signal is chaotic, your external life will be chaotic.
Okay, so that's the theory. That's the why. Now we need to get into the how. And that brings us to the toolbox. Because if you accept that reality is vibrational, you need tools to manipulate vibration.
Right.
And Sachdev presents a trinity of tools.
A highly specific trinity.
Right. And the first one is the software, the sonic code, mantras.
And again, we have to rebrand this word. When most people hear mantra, they think of someone sitting in a yoga class humming to relax, or they think it's a religious prayer. Dev treats mantras like passwords, like sonic algorithms.
He uses the example of cymatics to prove this point, right?
Cymatics is visual proof of sound's power over matter. Have you ever seen those videos where they put sand on a metal plate and run a sound frequency through it?
Oh, I love those. The sand snaps into these perfect geometric patterns.
Exactly. At a low frequency, maybe it's a simple circle. You turn the frequency up and suddenly it snaps into a complex mandala. You change the pitch, the pattern changes instantly. That is the physical mechanism. Sound structures matter.
So how does that apply to chanting?
Sachdev argues that mantras are precise sound formulas designed to structure the energy of your nervous system. It's pure physiology. The movement of the tongue against the palate in specific ways stimulates the vagus nerve, which runs all the way from the brainstem down to the abdomen.
So when you chant, you aren't just making noise. You are physically tapping a code into your nervous system via the tongue.
You are. It shifts brainwave states from beta, which is our normal stress, alertness, fight or flight mode, into theta or gamma. Beta is the programmable state. Gamma is the state of hyperfocus and deep insight. You are using sound to hack your own operating system.
It's literally entering code into the command prompt. So let's break down the specific codes he lists in the manual, because he gets very specific about bija, or seed mantras. These are the one-syllable sounds.
Bija mantras are the root files. They are the atomic units of sound in this system. Let's start with the most famous one, Om. Everyone knows it, but very few pronounce it correctly or understand the actual physics behind it. Sachdev breaks it down as AUM. It resonates at 432 hertz.
Why 432 hertz specifically?
It's considered a harmonic of the universe's natural frequency. But look at the phonetics he outlines. The A vibrates low in the belly. That corresponds to the waking state. The U vibrates higher in the chest. That is the dreaming state.
And the M?
The M vibrates in the head and the nasal cavity. That is the deep sleep state. When you chant AUM correctly, rolling through those centers, you are running a diagnostic check on your entire consciousness stack, from the physical to the subconscious to the unconscious.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But then he gets into the app-specific mantras. The one that jumped out at me, and I think will jump out at everyone listening who wants to improve their career or finances, is Shreem.
The wealth algorithm.
Right, Shreem. S-H-R-E-M. It's not just a random sound. He breaks down the phonetics of why this specific sound works for wealth.
It's fascinating linguistics. The Shreem sound is a clearing fricative. Think of shush. It simulates the sound of steam or release. It clears the nervous system of static and resistance to wealth. Then you hit the R. The R is heat, momentum, fire. It's the engine. It initiates action.
And the vowel.
The E is the pure vowel sound of receptivity, focus, and Shakti energy. And finally, the M is the seal. It's the grounding of that energy into physical reality.
So when you say Shreem, you're physiologically programming your nervous system to clear resistance, generate momentum, receive the result, and ground it.
Exactly. It's a script. You are running a script called abundance.xace. It is explicitly designed to attract resources.
It's not magic. It's a frequency that tunes the RAS to opportunity. If you are vibrating Shreem, your brain starts noticing the investment opportunity. You notice the new client that was right in front of you.
And equally important, you stop filtering them out. You stop self-sabotaging because your nervous system is finally aligned with the concept of wealth instead of the fear of poverty.
Then there's Cleam, which he calls the magnetic algorithm.
Cleam is fascinating because it targets the heart's electromagnetic field. We know from research at places like the Hot Math Institute that the heart's magnetic field is about 60 times stronger than the brain's. It extends several feet outside the body.
Wow, 60 times.
Yes. And Cleam is the sound code that harmonizes that specific field. It's often called the love mantra, but Sachdev frames it much more clinically as relationship harmonization.
It's about resonance.
It is entirely about resonance. It dissolves relational blocks. If you want to attract a specific type of person or deepen an existing connection, you have to broadcast a signal that resonates with that reality.
Yeah.
If your heart field is broadcasting anxiety or neediness, that is a repulsive signal.
People feel that subconsciously and pull away.
Exactly. Cleam smooths out that waveform. It creates a coherent signal that acts like a magnet.
And what about Krim?
KRIM, the transformative catalyst.
Okay.
That is the breaker bar. If you are stuck, if you're stagnant, if nothing is moving, maybe you're depressed or your business has completely plateaued, Krim is the electric shock.
A system reboot.
Yes. It's associated with the goddess Kali in the Vedic tradition, which represents the destruction of the ego and the old self. It's a high-voltage mantra. It cuts right through the noise.
One thing Sachdev emphasizes over and over in the manual is precision. You can't just mumble these while you're doing the dishes.
No, it's a password. If you type your computer password in with one wrong letter, you don't get mostly logged in. You get locked out completely. The vibration has to be precise to hit the resonant frequency of the vagus nerve and the biofield. This is actually why, in the book, he strongly suggests getting the audio companion or listening to a master pronounce them. The text gives you the phonetics, but hearing the oscillation is critical. If you pronounce shreem as shrum, you are running a broken script.
It won't execute. So mantras are the sound code. But sound is only one part of the spectrum. We also have the visual code. And that brings us to segment 3, which is yantras.
The interface.
Right, the geometric circuitry. Sachdev defines yantras not as art, but as energy blueprints or geometric circuit boards.
Think about how your brain processes images. You have a part of the brain called the fusiform gyrus. It is highly specialized for object recognition.
Right.
When you look at a chaotic image, a messy room, a really busy street, your brain works hard to decode it. It burns glucose.
It's computationally heavy.
Exactly. But when you look at sacred geometry, perfect symmetry, fractals, the golden ratio, it bypasses the analytical mind. The brain recognizes the underlying pattern instantly. It speaks directly to the subconscious. A yantra is a visual program.
And the big one, the master board as he calls it, is the Sri yantra.
The Sri yantra is a mathematical marvel. It's composed of 9 interlocking triangles. 4 point upward, representing the masculine or Shiva energy, which is consciousness, stability, structure. 5 point downward, representing the feminine or Shakti energy, creation, change, flow.
And they interlock in a very specific way.
Yes, the way they interlock creates 43 smaller triangles. It visually represents the entire cosmos collapsing into a single point.
The bindu.
The bindu. The singularity in the dead center, the 0-point field. It represents the point where the observer and the observed become one.
And he mentions specific yantras for specific goals, just like the mantras, right?
Yes, the system is totally consistent. If shreem is the sound of wealth, the Kubera yantra is the visual shape of wealth. It uses specific geometric ratios associated with accumulation and resource management. Then there's the Ganesha yantra, which is the geometry of obstacle removal. It's visually sharper, designed to basically cut through static in your mental field.
But how do you actually use these? You don't just hang them on the wall like a poster, right? That seems way too passive for this framework.
No, hanging it on the wall is just decoration. Sachdev outlines the Tritaka protocol.
That's the gazing technique.
Correct. This is an active engagement. You place the yantra at eye level, roughly an arm's length away. You gaze at the center point, the bindu, without blinking. You hold that gaze until your eyes actually start to water slightly.
Why until they water? That sounds uncomfortable.
Because the tears indicate a physical shift in the autonomic nervous system. You are straining the optical nerve just enough to trigger a physiological reset. You are literally burning the geometric pattern into your retina. You're installing the geometry into your mind. So when you close your eyes, you should still see the after image, usually in inverted colors. That is when the actual programming happens. You focus on that internal image. It aligns your internal visualization with that perfect geometric order.
That's intense. It's like forcing your brain to sync up with a perfect frequency.
It creates absolute coherence. A chaotic brain cannot manifest a coherent reality. Tritaka forces the brain into coherence. It's focus training on steroids.
Okay, so we have sound with the mantra and sight with the yantra. Now we need the hardware, the physical anchor.
Yeah.
Segment 4, the Rudrakshas.
And this is where people might get tripped up if they aren't familiar with the tradition, but Sachdev grounds this in bioelectricity perfectly. Rudrakshas are actual seeds from the Eleocarpus ganitris tree, found mostly in the Himalayas and Indonesia.
But he doesn't call them holy beads or prayer beads. He calls them biological capacitors.
Because that is exactly what they function as. A capacitor in an electrical circuit stores and stabilizes electrical energy. Sachdev discusses the scientific properties of these specific seeds, their inductance, capacitance, resistance. They have proven dielectric properties.
So what happens when you wear them?
When you wear them against the skin, they act as a stabilizer for your own bioelectric field. We are constantly leaking energy. Through stress, distraction, EMFs from our phones and Wi-Fi, the Rudraksha acts like a battery pack and a filter. It creates a closed circuit with your body.
And just like the mantras and yantras, there are different types. He outlines the mukhi, or phase system.
This is critical. You can't just buy any random bead at a tourist gift shop. The mukhi refers to the number of clefts or natural grooves on the surface of the seed. If you slice it open, it actually has that many compartments inside. Each number corresponds to a completely different frequency output.
Let's run through the big ones, starting with the 5 mukhi.
The 5 mukhi is the general stabilizer. It's the most common for a reason. It's associated with general health, the 5 elements, and specifically, it monitors and regulates the heartbeat. Sachdev suggests this is the baseline bead for almost everyone. It balances blood pressure and calms the nervous system. If you are a high-strung person, this is your ground wire.
And the 1 mukhi.
The 1 Muki is the rarest. It is the laser view. It represents pure consciousness, singular focus. It is extremely powerful for leaders or people who need absolute piercing clarity. But Sachdev actually warns that it can be too intense for some people.
He gives it a high voltage warning.
Yes, it's like plugging a 12-volt appliance into a high-voltage line. If your nervous system isn't prepared for that level of intensity, it can make you feel detached or totally spaced out. You need to be ready for it.
This is where the manual really becomes essential, because he gets into advanced configurations. He talks about building triads.
Right, you don't just wear one bead in isolation, you build a circuit. Just like you combine resistors and capacitors on a circuit board to get a specific result. The wealth triad is a highly specific combination mentioned in the text. It's a 5 Muki, a 12 Muki, and a 13 Muki.
Why those exact numbers?
The 12th Muki is associated with the sun. That means vitality, radiance, leadership, being seen. If you want to be a CEO or a public figure, you need solar energy. The 13 Muki is associated with Venus and Indra, which governs charm, magnetism, luxury. It naturally attracts people and resources to you.
So you combine those two with the stabilizer.
Exactly. You combine those with the 5 Muki as the ground wire, and you have a wearable circuit explicitly designed for leadership, vitality, and attraction.
And what about the spiritual triad?
That's the 1 Muki, 7 Muki, and 8 Muki. The 7 is for wealth of wisdom, and the 8 is for removing severe obstacles and breaking stagnation. That circuit is for clarity, deep intuition, and breaking through heavy karmic stagnation.
Yeah, the whole diagnostic table in the book, right?
Yes, it's incredibly extensive. We cannot cover every Muki here. He lists the planetary associations, the health benefits, the specific mantras that activate each individual bead. If you are serious about wearing these, you really need to consult the diagnostic table in Manifestation 4.
Because you could mess it up.
You absolutely could. You don't want to wear a circuit that clashes with your current energy baseline. For example, if you already have high blood pressure and a lot of aggression, you probably shouldn't wear beads that increase solar heat. You need cooling beads.
Okay, so we've got the individual parts now. We have the mantra for sound, the yantra for sight, and the Rudraksha for touch and hardware. Segment 5 is about the Trinity. Why do we need all three simultaneously? I mean, can't I just chant?
It's about system integration. Think of it like a computer. The mantra is the software. It's the code you are typing. The yantra is the screen. It's the interface where you visualize the data. And the Rudraksha is the hardware, the power supply, and the processor.
That makes perfect sense.
If you just chant, it's like typing code with the monitor turned off. You don't know if it's working or where it's going. If you just wear the beads, it's like having an incredibly powerful computer, but never bothering to turn it on. Dev argues that the Trinity creates a closed-loop system. It engages all the senses and locks the intention into physical reality.
Can we walk through one of the deep dive protocols he outlines? Let's do the wealth manifestation protocol. Step by step, how does this actually look in practice?
Sure. This is a very specific recipe. Step 1 is the setup. You physically face east.
Why east?
It's the direction of the rising sun, the solar energy. It signals new beginning and growth to the subconscious. Step 2 is the hardware. You put on the wealth triad Rudraksha, that's the 5-12-13 combination we talked about. This stabilizes your biofield and boosts your solar and magnetic output.
Okay, hardware is online.
Step 3, the interface. You place the Kubera Yantra at eye level in front of you. Step 4, the code. You begin the Tritaka gazing at the center of the yantra while chanting the Shri mantra exactly 108 times.
Why 108 times? Is that just tradition?
No, 108 is a sacred mathematical ratio in the Vedas. The distance between the Earth and the Sun is roughly 108 times the Sun's diameter. The distance between the Earth and the Moon is roughly 108 times the Moon's diameter. It connects the micro to the macro.
It's a full sensory takeover, isn't it?
Exactly. You are completely occupying the voice, the ears, the eyes, and the tactile sensation on the skin. You are creating what physicists call a standing wave in the quantum field. You are locking your consciousness onto the frequency of abundance from every conceivable angle. There is literally no room for doubt or distraction to enter because your entire bandwidth is occupied by the ritual.
And what's the timeline for this? Do I do this once and I'm rich?
Definitely not. This is crucial. He mentions a 21-day activation phase just to get the system running and clear the initial static, but he heavily emphasizes the 40-day threshold.
Why 40 days specifically?
It's neurological. It takes roughly 40 days of consistent, unbroken repetition to myelinate a new neural pathway, to make it permanent in the brain structure. If you stop at day 15, the past dissolves.
Like it was never there.
Right. It's like walking through a field of tall grass. If you walk it once, the grass just springs right back up behind you. If you walk it every single day for 40 days, you beat down a permanent dirt path. You have to cross that neurological threshold.
He also details a relationship protocol in the manual.
Yes, it's a similar setup, but with completely different components. You face north or east. You use the Venus Yantra or the Twin Heart Yantra as your visual interface. You wear a Rudraksha combination suited for harmony, like the Tumukhi, which explicitly represents unity. And the sonic code is clean.
And we should clarify, the goal here isn't mind control, right?
No, Sachdev is very clear about that. You aren't forcing someone to love you against their will. That's not how this physics works. You are recalibrating your own electromagnetic field to dissolve your internal blocks to intimacy, which then attracts resonance. You simply become magnetic to that frequency.
I just love how mechanical this whole approach is. It really takes the desperation and the emotion out of it. You're just tuning the machine.
Precisely. Desperation is inherently a frequency of lack. Manifestation requires a baseline frequency of having. The machine helps you hold that frequency.
Let's move to segment 6, optimization. Because Sachdev doesn't just give you the tools, he tells you how to turbocharge them. He talks about fire and time.
The fire ceremony, or Agni, this is often seen by outsiders as purely religious or ceremonial, but Sachdev frames it as high-speed data transmission.
It's converting matter to energy.
Right. When you put physical offerings, ghee, wood, specific herbs into the fire while chanting the mantra, you are physically converting dense matter into plasma and light. You are releasing the stored energy of the offering and binding it to the intention of the mantra. It creates a massive burst of energy.
He describes it like an internet connection, right?
He describes it as the difference between sending an email over an old 56K dial-up connection versus a modern fiber optic cable. If you need a result fast, or if you are facing a massive stubborn obstacle, you introduce the fire element. It accelerates the entropy of the old reality.
And then there's temporal engineering, timing your protocols.
The Brahma Muhurta. We touched on this briefly. It's the pre-dawn window, specifically around 4:30 a.m. to 5:20 a.m.
Which is very early. Most people are definitely hitting snooze at that time.
They are, but the physics rationale for waking up then is sound. At that specific hour, the angle of the sun to the Earth's ionosphere creates a distinct drop in electromagnetic interference. The world is physically quiet. The collective consciousness of your time zone is asleep. The mental static, the noise floor of the planet, is at its absolute lowest.
So there's less interference for your signal.
Exactly. If you want to program your subconscious without external resistance, that is the prime window. Plus, your brain is naturally still in a theta state as you wake up. The door to the operating system is wide open.
He also gets into utilizing lunar cycles.
The tides of the mind. We are 70% water. The moon affects our biology just like it affects the ocean. The new moon is the probability phase. It's empty, dark. That is when you seed a new intention. You always start your 40-day cycle on a new moon.
And the full moon.
The full moon is the manifestation phase. It's illuminated, high energy. That is when you amplify and broadcast the signal. And he even maps out planetary days for specific goals. Thursday is ruled by Jupiter, so you use that for your wealth protocols. Friday is ruled by Venus, so you use that for relationship protocols.
It's basically catching the wave. I mean, you can swim against the tide if you want, or you can just ride it.
Exactly. It's about efficiency. Why fight the current when the calendar tells you which way it's flowing?
And finally, he outlines a rigorous 30-day integration practice in the book.
The sprint. This is for when you are truly ready to commit. It involves a strict morning activation routine and an evening integration routine, and he heavily insists on data logging.
Tracking your metrics.
Tracking everything. You need to track your HRV, your heart rate variability, you need to track your synchronicities, your mood fluctuations. You need to treat this like a clinical scientist. Is the protocol working? Look at the data. Did you get a random check in the mail? Did you randomly meet a new contact in your industry? Write it down.
Because you'll forget or dismiss it.
If you don't track it, you're just guessing. And often, manifestation happens in these really subtle, incremental ways that the conscious mind just dismisses as coincidence if you aren't rigorously looking for the data.
Man, this has been massive. There's so much here. My brain is vibrating right now.
And we have really just scratched the surface of the architectural framework.
So let's wrap this up. What is the ultimate synthesis here?
The synthesis is this. You are the architect of your reality. But for most of your life, you have been building without a blueprint, in the dark, with tools you don't actually understand. You've been accidentally hitting your thumb with the hammer over and over again. Sachdev's work, Manifestation 4, turns the lights on in the workshop. It says, here are the tools, here is the software, here is the hardware. Stop wishing and start engineering. It empowers you to take conscious control of the signal you are broadcasting every second of every day.
But, and this is the vital part, we only gave you the overview today. We gave you the what. But the highly specific pronunciation of shreem so you don't mess up the frequency, the detailed diagnostic table of the Rudraksha beads so you don't wear a circuit that burns you out, the geometric nuances of the yantras, that is all in the actual book.
It is. You cannot reverse engineer the full system just from this conversation. You need the manual in front of you. You wouldn't try to build a jet engine based on a podcast description. You need the schematics.
So here is our hard directive for you. If you are serious about this, if you want to perform the prana pratishtha, the actual activation rituals, and get this system fully online, you need the source text. Go to Amazon, go to Google Play, go to your favorite book retailer right now.
The exact title is Manifestation 4, Unlocking the Power of Mantra, Yantra, and Rudraksha by Kanav Sachdev.
And I'm going to add a really strong personal recommendation here. Get the audiobook version. It's available right now on Spotify and Google Play. Why? Because you need to hear the mantras. You need to hear the correct pronunciation from a master. If you are vibrating the wrong sonic frequency, you aren't opening the lock. The audiobook is the literal key to the sonic code.
Absolutely. Hearing the oscillation is essential for the physics to actually work.
Now I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as we close out. We've talked extensively about how your conscious observation collapses reality. But think about this. If you are the observer collapsing the wave function, what happens when you go to sleep? The subconscious mind never sleeps. It never stops broadcasting.
It's always running in the background.
Always. So if you haven't engineered that subconscious signal using the tools in this manual, what reality is your sleeping mind building for you to wake up to tomorrow?
That is a very sobering thought.
Thank you for listening to the Transformation Roadmap. Now, stop listening to us. Go acquire the manual and build your reality.
See you in the field.